Welcome to Pregnant Possibilities. I am Jeanne Schumacher, and my partner is Dr. Debra Shapiro, a board-certified OBGYN. And together we created a program called The Pregnancy Advantage. Our objective is to help women to get their bodies pregnant ready and also provide support if you're experiencing difficulties in conceiving. Exciting news. We are currently working on the Baby Advantage, which is going to begin at conception and take you through your first year. So we're currently working on that program. And today on our show, we're going to be discussing the toxins that we're exposed to and what they can do to our future children. So Doc, you ready to jump in?
Yes. Today we're going to continue our discussion about endocrine disrupting chemicals. Endocrine disrupting chemicals are chemicals that have an effect on our hormones. They can actually act like hormones. We know that, BPA is sort of estrogen-like, for example, or they can turn things on, they can turn things off, they can affect how our hormones interact with each other and how chemicals in our brain interact with each other. They're extremely dangerous, and we're exposed to many of them. And they really haven't been, there have been a lot of studies on animals. Actually, let me just go back. We've learned about endocrine disrupting chemicals initially because of what they did to wildlife. So we were starting to see problems with the genitalia in wildlife and with their ability to procreate so that started a conversation and with researchers to look at what could be going on with humans. So we really have been part of this larger experiment now since probably the end of World War I or the end of World War II, where we've been exposed to really literally thousands of chemicals, and we don't know what they all do together synergistically, and then of course along with our diet, which is full of saturated fat and the stress that we're under. And anyways, it's a wonder that we're doing as well as we are. Actually, I often wonder about this myself. But so let's talk about arsenic. Arsenic is a neurotoxin. It's a heavy metal, along with mercury and lead. These are neurotoxins. Arsenic was used as I believe, a pesticide on our cotton crops, especially in the South. So what happened is we stopped growing the cotton. Now we're growing rice in those same fields, but the arsenic doesn't really degrade very well. So it's there. And so it goes up into the rice. And then we have rice that's contaminated with arsenic. And the way we cook rice, or the way I was always taught to cook rice seems to absorb more arsenic than other things. It's found, because it was used as a pesticide in the past, it's found in water, it's found in soil. I mean, it's in fish. It's not as much of a worry in fish, I believe, as mercury, but it's there. So the way I was taught to cook rice was to add the rice and the water, and you boil it, and then you let it simmer until all the water is absorbed into the rice. Well, that would not be the best way to cook rice if you're trying to eliminate some of the arsenic. So there are better ways to cook rice, which I did want to talk to you about. So one is to soak your rice and get rid of the water that it was soaked in. And then also to boil the rice the way you would boil beans, not to let all the water absorb, but just to boil it in a lot of water. And when it's done, it's done. And then again, just discard the water. So that would definitely lower the amount of arsenic. That's if you're buying rice, and even brown rice has more arsenic than white rice actually. But it just depends on where the rice comes from. So if the rice comes from India or Nepal or Pakistan, it will probably have less arsenic than if it comes from the American South. And if you get rice from California, it might have less. Lundberg is a company that actually tests their rice for arsenic and publishes that on their website. But what's interesting is that we don't just eat rice. And so I'm recommending not eating rice every day because of this. And certainly if you're going to try to get pregnant, this might be something that's very important because you want to lower your load of any kind of toxins, including arsenic. But it turns out that it's in rice milk and rice bran that can end up in processed food. It's in rice-based breakfast cereals or baby cereals, rice crackers, brown rice syrup can have arsenic, and that's in a lot of bars that we get. that we eat if people are eating these sort of fast food bars. So always think about if something says rice, that it might have arsenic. And so I would not be drinking rice milk. I really wouldn't. And I don't think we're feeding our babies rice cereal anymore, unless they can really say that that we know where it's from and it doesn't have the arsenic. So arsenic is a problem.
Yes, I want to jump in
please.
Because, you know, when you're looking at the rice and thinking about it, one of the things when you were talking about that, when you're cooking it, one of the things you can do is after you finish cooking it, as you said, you boil it, then you rinse it really, really well. Now your rice is like really, really saturated and very over wet. So what you can do is put it back into the pot and put it back on a very, very low heat. And then put a towel at the top between the pot and the lid. And that towel is going to absorb some of the moisture as it starts to evaporate. So, and then you have a nice dry rice, you know, drier, you know, than it was when it was clumpy, poopy. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
That is a great tip. And I know a lot of people use rice makers, and so you don't have that flexibility with a rice maker. I believe it's all just absorbed. I don't use a rice maker, but I know when I use my Instant Pot, I don't really have much of a choice. Do you think that people can be using rice makers with rice, or shouldn't be?
Well, not only rice makers, but even in the Instant Pot, but you're just going to cook it with a lot more water. You know, instead of boiling it, you're just cooking it with a lot more water and doing a great job of rinsing it. And I know you mentioned the rice milk, and I just want to point out to you that rice milk is not a good choice, apart from the arsenic, but because almost all rice milks contain oil. Mm-hmm. So rice milk is very, very thin to begin with. So I just wanted to make sure we get that out there. So,
right, because we're trying to avoid some extra oils where you can. The other thing about arsenic and about chicken, well, sort of its connection with arsenic and chicken, there is a lot of arsenic in chicken. And of course, we would never recommend that you eat chicken, but they were using, I think they were feeding arsenic-laced feed to chickens, possibly as a growth to help them grow. And then the fecal matter from the chickens also gets put onto rice fields. So that's like another way that the rice can be contaminated, but it's through the chicken manure, which is contaminated now with arsenic. So I think the best thing is to vary your grains. You don't have to eat brown rice every day. I mean, that is a way to eat, but I think it's better always to have a variety of foods. So you can have quinoa, you can have black rice and red rice, and you can have barley and oat groats, and you can have spelt and kamut. And I mean, there are just so many different, and rye, you can have so many different grains, and buckwheat. So experiment with different grains, try different grains. If you haven't had any, and there are certainly a lot of even the gluten-free grains, but try different things so you can enjoy it. Just expand your repertoire, especially if you have an Instant Pot. You can just throw anything in. There's a great book called Vegan Under Pressure, which has wonderful tables to tell you how to cook everything that you want to cook in the Instant Pot. I love that book. I look at it every day. And experiment with new grains. So go to the store if you can, or look online, because not everyone's shopping at stores, but try different grains. So shake it up. So, the variety is what you need for all the different foods, so that you can have lots of varied bacteria in your gut. If you always eat the same thing, you're just going to have the same little bacteria, the same kinds of bacteria. They're going to eat that kind of food. But you want to have a variety of food, so you have a variety of bacteria in your gut, and that's going to give you the healthiest microbiota.
I also like to point out from the World Health Organization that they have on their website about arsenic in rice. They talk about in utero and early childhood exposure has been linked to negative impacts on cognitive development and increased deaths in young adults. So, and there's, two basic, okay, the chemistry teacher's coming out and they can't help it. There's two compounds that can be divided into two broad categories that deal with arsenic. So there's organic arsenic, which is mainly found in plant and animal tissue, and then inorganic arsenic found in rocks and soil or dissolved in water. And that's the more toxic form. That's what we're dealing with. And when I say inorganic versus organic, we're talking about not like it's USDA certified organic. We're talking about the chemistry definition of it. So organic means that it's carbon-based versus inorganic, which means it's not going to be carbon-based. So it's a little bit different. So just to get that out there. So we're dealing with the inorganic form, which is a little bit more toxic, and these levels have been increasing because of the, pollution. So
yeah, endocrine disrupting chemicals are being studied. It's an active area of study right now because they don't just work like, let's say, when we were talking before. So another part of the pregnancy advantage is to reduce saturated fat and reduce obesity before you get pregnant, because we know that a high fat diet, high maternal weight gain, and maternal obesity leads to epigenetic changes in the fetus and through inflammation, mainly through inflammatory pathways. So the endocrine disrupting chemicals don't seem, I haven't been hearing that when I've been reading the research. It's not through inflammatory pathways. It's different. They're doing it through the usual epigenetic ways with methylation, but also something called microRNA. So this is another way of creating changes to gene expression, because we're still talking about changes to gene expression, but not from inflammation, but through these short bits of RNA that attach themselves into, I think, post-transcription. We've gone from the DNA to the RNA and change the expression of the gene that way. So it's really fascinating. And if you just look up, if you're concerned and you're thinking, oh, this is baloney, I don't care about any of this, this is not true. It is true. And you can just look up, if you just Google endocrine disrupting chemicals, or if you look on PubMed and just look up endocrine disrupting chemicals, there's a huge amount of research, and it's not that old. That's the problem. We've really just been studying it sort of since the 80s and 90s, and there's a lot of research in Europe about the cost of endocrine disrupting chemicals causing problems with the young and with young people. And I really feel not only that we've been in this experiment for a long time and that we've been between the chemicals exposure and also the food, but in addition, I feel like we're on this is my new way of thinking about it, is that it's really just been like Groundhog Day, because we get to people when they're about 40 and 50 and 60, and we reverse their disease using, now we know, plant-based nutrition, right? So if you have heart disease, we can reverse it. If you have, maybe not cancer if it's already progressed, but if you have a pre-cancer, often that can be helped. If you have, hypertension and diabetes, that can be reversed. We can do all that, but we're never going to change what is happening to people if we don't get to them before they conceive, because a lot of these changes happen. There's an interface with the placenta. They're finding these chemicals acting in the placenta, and the same thing with fat and saturated fat. I mean, they're having an effect on the way your dopaminergic system works and your serotonergic, your serotonin system. They're interfering. So, I'm very upset about all this, you can see, but I honestly feel like we're never going to be able to get out of this loop of people being born already poisoned, destined to get sick, destined. You're wondering why you have fibroids? Well, it could be that your mother was exposed to a toxin that leads to increased risk of diabetes and obesity and fibroids and endometriosis, right? So, okay, calm down.
You feel better now?
I do, but I really want to get the word out, because I feel like as doctors, we're not thinking about this yet. This is really new. And this idea of the chemicals plus the obesity, we know that we're reducing IQ points when babies are born to moms that have excessive weight gain and they're obese, right? That decreases IQ. Now you also expose them to multiple toxins, and that also reduces IQ. So you wonder, how did we get here? How come no one's paying attention to climate change? How come no one's really thinking properly? You can speak to this about what you see in the classroom. People are not able to think properly anymore. And it's honestly no wonder.
Well, and I did see it in the classroom a lot. Over my 35 years of teaching in the classroom, oh my gosh, kids have changed dramatically, and not in a good way. Honestly, I have to say that they could not handle when I was first started teaching. I was teaching at a much, much higher level, especially for chemistry, much higher level. And the biggest thing that I've noticed, apart from like the ADD, ADHD, the cognitive development, the biggest thing that I've seen is the challenge for students to be able to take a concept or some topic that they've learned about and apply it to a new situation. which I think set us apart from many parts of the world, you know, because where students were just taught to train to memorize things. Like at my school that I was at, my last school, we had a lot of Chinese students that came over from China that came to the United States, and they were immersed in our private school. And one of the things that they are awesome at is memorizing and being able to spit back for a test. And one of the things that I found and seen in them is that they have a hard time applying, you know, the material that they've learned. So, but I think that's partly from the way that they were raised and trained. But one of the things that I think that set apart the United States is that we've been able to do that because we don't focus on memorizing, we focus on internalizing and being able to apply the concepts. And I have found that our students are having a very difficult time doing that. So, but I've seen it, and I think this is one of the reasons why that you and I are just so passionate about this. I mean, you're seeing it from the kids coming out of the chute, you know, not even an hour old and already loaded with over 200 chemicals in their bloodstream already. Not even an hour old and they're toxic. Really? Wow. Okay. So, well, anyway, so arsenic, rice, you want to be careful. You know, you can do your best. And I think soaking it before, you know, soaking the rice ahead of time before you're going to cook it, just like you do beans, and then rinsing that, you know, very well a couple of times, but then boiling it and then rinsing it again and then drying it a little bit, I think is going to get your toxins out. But I also talked, you know, think about what you said, you know, vary your grains, but there's parts of the world where this is an issue, you know, because like literally in Chinese, good morning means, have you had your rice yet? That literally is how it's translated.
Wow.
Because that's what, you know, they have it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Right.
You know, and I shouldn't say now because that was before, because I think the population, you know, since the sad diet has invaded China, you know, we've exported it and now China is feeling the consequences. But I think if you're going to be eating, you know, rice 3 times a day, then this is something of concern. But if you just have rice once a week or twice a week or something like that, I wouldn't be that concerned. I think cooking it, like what we're talking about, how to prepare the rice, I think that's great. That's going to help.
Excellent.
So let's talk about one of your passion. Oh, this one's mine. Okay. This is where I start to foam at the mouth. And that's the chemical toxins we're being exposed to in our personal care products. And that for me is just, it's unacceptable. It is unacceptable. There's no regulation in this country. It's the wild, wild west. And it just is, you know, and it's sad that this is not here, that like in Europe, they use what's called the precautionary principle, where you have to prove that what you're using is not going to be harmful or toxic to humans before you can sell that. So we don't have any of that here in the United States. There's no regulation. They can use anything they want, and they do. You know, it's like, oh, that one died, that one dropped dead, and we better not use that chemical anymore. But that's it. And they may still use it even though that's happening. Anyway, parabens, one of my biggest absolute things that we should not be using or have exposure. Parabens is a chemical family. So if you see the ending paraben on anything like methylparaben, butylparaben, propylparaben, it doesn't matter. They're all bad. Okay. Period. End of statement. So these have been widely used in so many of our personal care products since the 1920s as an artificial preservative, because what it does is it stops bacteria and mold from growing in like your shampoo or your, you know, sunscreen or lotions. You don't want bacteria growing in that and then put that on your skin. No. So we want to stop that bacteria from growing. So that's what the initial reason why we put the parabens into it. But here's the problem. Number one, they're an endocrine disruptor. They can disrupt the hormones in the body and harm fertility, okay, and reproductive organs. They can affect birth outcomes. They can increase the risk of cancer, okay? So, but for me, the big thing for me that just makes me absolutely crazy is they can affect your birth outcomes and have causing problems either from you conceiving or to having a healthy baby, okay? So these things are bioaccumulative. meaning that they're going to go into your body and they're going to store in your fat cells and they're going to start to build up. And so here's the reason why that it's an issue. Your body thinks it's not, but your body thinks it's estrogen. Okay? So if there's an excess amount of estrogen in your body, doc, is that going to cause some problems in us?
Absolutely.
Ugh, God, I know.
And these chemicals affect men and women differently. They affect male fetuses and female fetuses differently. So all of these endocrine disrupting chemicals, and don't think you're not getting a toxic load, because they can be functioning, on a cellular level, and with these, this microRNA, they're at very, very, very low levels, at levels that we are exposed to.
Well, irritations is another one that they can cause, skin irritations. And they've done studies, because if you put anything on your skin, literally in 26 seconds, it's in your bloodstream. 26 seconds, okay? So studies have detected parabens in nearly almost all urine samples taken from adults. They did, regardless of the demographics, rich, poor, white, black, pink, purple, whatever you are, it doesn't matter who. Okay, they were testing the urines and finding these parabens in them. And I have to say, I broke my wrist. I am now banned from ladders because I was staining our house up on the Cape. And I had my hand wrapped around the ladder, and the ladder slid out from under me and literally crushed my wrist. Okay, like my full weight came down on my wrist. To make a long story short, I had to have surgery. Okay, surgery, then therapy. Okay. So we go to therapy for the first time, and I've never been to therapy. I've never broken. This is the first time I've ever done anything, like this, broken a bone, whatever. So I'm the first time at therapy, and she comes out and sticks this big tub on the table, and she opens it up and she grabs a big hunk of it, and I'm like, what's that? And she said, oh, it's just nice cream. It's going to be good for you. I'm going to massage your wrist out because you're tight because of surgery, and we have to stretch your tendons and yada, yada, yada. I said, Ma, just 1 second, please. And I picked it up and turned it around, and I looked on the back, and not one, but three. There was 3 parabens in that, plus 2 other chemicals that were serious endocrine disruptors, okay? In this one tub of stuff that was, you could only buy it, for this purpose. It wasn't like you could get this cream on the market or whatever. And I didn't say anything because this was the first time I was there, and I didn't want her to think like, okay, this is this nut job, whatever. So I pull up my Mary Poppins bag because I have this big purse. And I start rummaging around, and I pulled out, and I said, no, we're going to use this, okay, for this massage. And that was all I said. And finally, after she's massaging my arm, and she said, okay, why? What's the problem with this? And I said, well, honestly, dear, I said, I'm doing this more for you than for me. I said, because I'm only going to be here once today. I said, how many times do you do this? Because she wasn't using gloves. It was, I said, how many times do you do this a day? She said, like, I do this like 10, 12 times, with patients that I see in a day. And I said, okay, let me just tell you, first of all, let me ask you a question. I said, do you have kids? And she said, no. I could see she was married, and well, not that means anything, but I said, do you have any kids? And she said, no. And I said, did you want kids anytime soon? She said, well, yeah, actually. And I said, this will cause problems with that. And I said, this has not 1, but 3 parabens in it. To make a long story short, she stood up and listened. She listened to what I had to say. And then I said, you might want to try using this instead. And I had provided for her, we use the jojoba oil from Pure Haven Essentials. If anybody's interested in finding about products that are toxic free, just message me on Facebook or through our Facebook page, The Pregnancy Advantage, because I found a company that is 100% toxic free. Anyway, we used the jojoba oil, which had no fragrance in it, so it wasn't going to cause any issues, with other, clients or customers or whatever. And she found that it worked even better than the cream that she had been using. So she started, getting that and buying that and using that instead, which was a huge benefit for her, in the long run.
That's an amazing story. I hadn't thought of that. I mean, that's so sad that she was exposed to this multiple times a day.
I know.
Really getting, and when people think about they have thyroid disease, endocrine disruptors interfere with thyroid function. It's a cause of thyroid disease. And you know, this is extremely sad, but you know the ultrasound gel that they use for doing OB ultrasounds?
No.
Yes. Yeah, it contains some of these endocrine disrupting.
No.
Yes.
No.
But I don't know what you can do about it. We have, that's why we have to do everything we can. And you can't necessarily remove yourself from the air that has, automobile fumes that have heterocyclic amines that are, that's an endocrine disrupting chemical, but you can certainly not smoke, so I don't think you can really go into your ultrasonographer's office and say, oh, wait, but maybe there are, maybe there are other non-toxic gels, but I don't know, I'm sorry. This is a problem. This is a problem.
Well, yes. They had done studies.
Yeah.
They had done studies in comparing women, and women, men, adolescents, children who regularly use cosmetics and those who don't. They compared them side by side. So adolescent girls who were wearing makeup every day had 20 times the level of propylparaben in their urine as compared to girls who didn't wear makeup.
And these will change when you reach menarche. These will change. These will have an effect on your body. So it's very important, but it's more important preconceptually. The best thing you can do if you're still young enough and thinking that you're going to have children, if you're before the age of 40, definitely clean up your act. And the Environmental Working Group also has a whole database on personal care products that are safe.
They do. And I just want to give you some numbers. Okay. So I took some numbers for propylparaben. Okay. The Skin Deep score it's called the Skin Deep Environmental Cosmetic Database on EWG, EWG.org. Strongly recommend it. It's a good place to start. I don't agree with everything that they do, but that's another conversation. Anyway, they have a score for propylparaben. They scored on a scale of 1 to 10. It rates a 7 out of 10. Okay. Number of products that have propylparaben in it, 2,694.
Right. Okay. So I challenge everyone who's listening and anyone who listens later to go into your shower or your bathtub and look at your shampoo and see.
Look at the ingredients, please.
I beg of you. Right. Because you really want to get paraben free. Since I've learned about this, I have been using paraben free and trying to use these endocrine disruptor free products on my skin. One thing that's interesting when you mentioned that things get in, someone was asking me yesterday, since we don't recommend eating coconut oil because it's so high in this lauric acid that's very high, it's a saturated fat. You know that coconut oil has more saturated fat than beef. It's more saturated fat than beef. Right. So, and that type of fat is this, this lauric acid is very atherogenic. It really raises your LDL cholesterol. But someone was asking, well, can I put it on my skin? And you were saying that everything gets absorbed. But yes, it gets absorbed, but it will not. This lauric acid is not going to raise your LDL cholesterol by putting it on your skin, right? Right. Okay. So coconut oil is great to put on you, but not in you.
Excellent. Good one. So I just want a couple other numbers because there's different other types of parabens. So there's isopropylparaben. That registers 8 out of 10, okay, on the EWG. There's 47 products with that. Butylparaben, it rates a 7 on a scale of 1 to 10, okay.
In terms of hazard, that's a score of hazard. So that's if it's between 7 and 10, it's a high hazard material. We don't want you to be exposed.
Yes.
All right, go on.
All right, so there's 586 products on their database right now. And then isobutylparaben, it registers on 8 out of 10, okay? And there's 285. So that's the number of products that you can find with these chemicals in it. And I just was like, wow. And we're trying to go paraben free, and a lot of products do that. But you have to be careful because a lot of it is smoke and mirrors, okay? Like, for example, aluminum. Aluminum is another one that I strongly recommend. We don't need it in our body. It's not healthy. It's not going to help you in any way, shape, or form. So one of the deodorants, what they do to hide the fact that they have aluminum in it is they write mineral salts, or they use the common name, like, for example, potassium alum, right? And because a girlfriend of mine had come over, she had shared with me, she says, I got to show you something. I need your opinion and see what you think. So she brings the deodorant over and she shows me her armpit. Her armpit was like on fire. Like it was so red and irritated. I could see she was in quite a lot of pain. You know, it looked like a burn. You know, it was that bad. Right. And I said, I said, what are you using? And she said, oh, no, I got this from Mrs. Green's, which is a local, you know, health and wellness store. And I said, okay, let's start with that statement. Just because it comes from a health food store doesn't mean that you're going to have better choices at a health food store, but not everything is going to be good for you at a health food store. Okay, period. So I turned around on the back because on the front it said paraben free. It said aluminum chlorohydrate free. It said, you know, whatever. There was like 10 things that it was free of, you know, toxins. And I said, you understand that this contains aluminum. And that was my suspect, that the aluminum was causing her irritation. She said, no, it doesn't. It says right here on the front. I said, no, let's be clear. It says it doesn't contain aluminum chlorohydrate. Okay, that's what's in most of the deodorants. Okay. I said, I turned it around and I said, see this potassium alum on the back here? Okay, that's short for potassium aluminum silicate. And in parentheses, they wrote after that, it said mineral salts. And she said, but it's a mineral salt. Isn't that healthy? And I said, okay, arsenic is a mineral salt. Okay. I really don't want to be consuming arsenic, especially in my rice. But I said, you have to be, it's smoke and mirrors in terms of advertising.
It's
you
always
cannot believe.
Right.
You can't believe what's on the front.
Of course. Right. It's true about foods also, because all those things, all those cereals that say high fiber, it's just as they're allowed to just say high fiber. It means nothing.
It means nothing.
It means nothing. Sorry.
It doesn't. So, and even if it has fiber in it, it's not going to be the fiber that you need. The fiber that you need is going to be in food like beans and rice. I mean, those are going to be things that are going to be high in fiber, real fiber, not like processed.
But I have fun going to the store and you're looking at those cereals and looking at the little box on the side, the nutritional, the nutrition, and seeing exactly how much fiber. And just as a little hint, I'd like to tell people what Dr. Greger has taught us is if you are going to buy a processed, I know this is off the topic of endocrine disrupting chemicals, but if you are going to buy a processed grain product, so that would be a bread, a cereal, a wrap, a pasta, on the side, you want the first ingredient to be whole, the word whole, or maybe organic whole, but it should say whole. And then you look at the total carbohydrates to fiber ratio, and you don't want that total carbohydrates to fiber ratio to be greater than 5. So if you get a bread, like a Dave's Killer bread that has a multi-seeds and it has, 15 grams of fiber, 15 grams of total carbs, you definitely want the grams of fiber to be at least 3 or more. So 5 to 1, you don't want it to be more than 5 to 1. And you'd be surprised at how many breads are way over that. They have more carbohydrates.
And just a note on Dave's Killer Bread. First of all, it was amazing. I mean, when they first came out, and they started adding oil to it though. Oh,
I think there may be some that don't. I thought there were some that don't. I mean, they have a little bit of fat because they have some seeds, but anyway, that's the thing to look for if you're going to be buying even tortillas. There's a big difference in tortillas, and you just try to get the one that has the total carbs to fiber ratio of no more than 5 to 1, and then that you're getting basically some healthier processed grain product, which we can't always live without. So there it is. But back to this, I mean, the idea of what people can put on their advertising, and you do really have to read the fine print. So turn things over. Don't just look at what they put on the front, but turn things over and look very carefully. And then you have this environmental working group guide, so you can actually just check off. And I know I had to do that with a lot of my sunscreens because they had some bad things in them.
Well, we have one question. So Debra, before we, end our show today, it's from Thulasi, and I'm probably saying your name wrong, and I apologize for that. But she says, hi, I'm 30 years old and I have thyroid issues and irregular periods. How can I get prepared to get pregnant?
Oh, excellent. Well, you can get in touch with us about joining the Pregnancy Advantage, because that's what that's all about. You can read Dr. Barnard's book on your body and balance, which is all about hormones in women.
Yes.
So that's really wonderful. We had him on last week, and you can go back and find that video because he talks about thyroid disease. talks a lot about, we really asked him specifically about that. So that would be wonderful for you to listen to. We had him on for about 40 minutes or 45 minutes, and he's coming back next month. So that's going to be wonderful. So if you have any specific questions for him, please let us know and we'll ask him. So that's wonderful. And I would say everything that we're talking about, if you can eat an organic whole plant food diet, if you can eliminate the endocrine disrupting chemicals and the chemicals in your environment, from your personal care products to the as much as you can in the foods that you're eating, plastics that you're using, the plastics that you're exposed to. We'll be talking more about these endocrine disrupting chemicals, but that's what this program is about, really getting you. We can possibly reverse, I don't know what kind of thyroid issues you have, but sometimes, like, you know, you could speak to this, but, you know, Jeanne actually she completely reversed her thyroid issues. So, but, you know, when we talk about these endocrine disrupting chemicals and how they might have affected, you know, you when you were in your mother's womb, some things we may not be able to fix now. Like you said, you know, you're 30, and so I don't know if everything can be fixed, but certainly even if you have thyroid issues, you can get yourself euthyroid or imbalance, and you can have a perfectly healthy baby with that. You know, certainly I've taken care of lots of people who are either on thyroid replacement or they, you know, whatever they had done, as long as you're euthyroid, and we watch you during your pregnancy, we don't, but your doctor watches you during your pregnancy to make sure that you maintain the proper amount of thyroid hormone. One thing that's very important is to make sure you're getting enough iodine, because you can't make thyroid hormone without iodine. That's what T4 has 4 molecules of iodine, and T3 has 3. I mean, you can't make it without iodine. So you need a source of iodine. And a lot of us have not been paying attention. I never thought about iodine. Never thought about iodine growing up, right?
That's the whole point of our program, is we want to help you to deal with these issues that you're dealing with before you get pregnant, okay? Because that's the key. And obviously, not everybody can do this because, you know, before you get pregnant. But if you're having trouble conceiving, then we can help you as well to clean this out and get your body ready. Because they don't, I'm just going to say, they don't call it labor for nothing, okay? Been there, done that twice. I got 2 kids, you know, they're now in their 20s, okay? But I remember it. Wow. Okay. And I really wish, honestly, I really had wished, because I was overseas and my children were born in Colombia, in Bogota. And I didn't have anybody except that, you know, I was teaching at a private American school, and I just had the teachers there at school, but I didn't have my friends, my family. And, you know, I wish I had had a program like this to guide me along, because there's so much to learn. And I thought I considered myself pretty educated, but I'm not at like Debra's level, you know, of what she knows about being an OBGYN and having a baby and, you know, and all of that. But, you know, I didn't think anything about it. You know, back then it was like, oh, here's some prenatals and good luck with you. And hope you have a good baby, you know, along the way. So, you know, I was in a new country. I was, you know, it was just so many things that I really wish I had paid more attention to. And I can see that I had an impact on my children, you know, along the way because of what I didn't know. And I, you know, reflect back, and I think that's another reason why, because I'm trying to make up for what I did to my kids. Sorry.
Well, certainly, I feel that well, for you have incredible experience because you've actually had a baby or 2 babies, and I have not. But I have brought a lot of babies into the world. But I'm also making up for not knowing, for not understanding how stress affected the fetus. Now we know about that, and also how so many conditions can be reversed, but through diet and lifestyle. But it won't make an impact on the next generation unless you reverse those conditions before you get pregnant. You're not going to make huge changes, most likely, about what you're eating and about all of your care products when you are pregnant. I just don't think that's the best time. That's not the time you're going to be doing it. You'll do your best, but the real change has to happen before, and then you'll be able to feed your family like this. You'll know already when the baby comes out, you'll know how to feed the baby, how to feed your family, a plant-based diet, a low-fat, whole plant food diet, and we'll make the next generation healthier and healthier and healthier as we just get back to where we should be before all of this toxic food and toxic environment happen to us. Exactly.
So, and I'm sure I'm saying your name wrong, but Tulasi, we wish you all the best on your pregnancy journey, because I can't say enough about it. I mean, it changes your life. It really does. I mean, you've seen it from the other end, catching them out of the chute. That changed your life, you know. And for me, having 2 children, wow, it's life-changing event. And I just became a grandmother. So, you know, that is also, yeah. So I'm seeing the next generation.
Right.
So I'm very excited, and I hope we wish you all the best, and we'd love to see you in our program, because that is the whole point of our program, is we want to help women who are having issues to get their bodies ready as best possible so that you can have the healthiest child.
Right.
So.
And just, you know, watch and get Neil Barnard's book and look at our last lecture, because last week, because he definitely talked about this, thyroid issues in particular, and it's addressed in his book as well. So, and make sure you're getting enough iodine. 3/4 of a teaspoon of iodized salt a day is 150 micrograms of iodine, which is what you need pre-conception. If you can't have the salt, 3/4 of iodized salt, 3/4 of a teaspoon of iodized salt, then you need 2 sheets of nori, you need a sprinkle of kelp, you need some kombu, you need some arame or wakame, but you need a source of iodine. Can't make thyroid hormone without iodine.
And I just want to say, jump in on that. I'm not a fan of the salt because of high blood pressure, and we don't want to see that. We don't want to see hypertension, you know, within your pregnancy. So we want to keep the salt levels down. So like you said, the sea vegetables from, you know, Japanese sea vegetables, amazing. You know, I use kombu myself. So, all right. Well, Debra, it's already another great show, and we will be back next week, same time, same channel, Thursdays, 12 o'clock generally. And we've got Dr. Neil Barnard coming back again in September, so we're very excited about that. And we have a free gift for you. We want to help you get your body pregnant ready. So you can go to pregnantready.net and download your free top things that Debra and I think, the top 3 things that you should be doing to get your body pregnant ready. So.
And where are we going to be tomorrow?
And we are doing TED Talks tomorrow, TEDx Conversations. So we'll be on the TEDx Dupree website, Facebook page, going live. So I'm very excited about that.
Yes, me also. Yes, it's quite an honor.
All right.
All right.
It
you
is.
take care.
So
bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.